a young man who was dedicated and committed to the development of this country. Right? It's not necessarily party, it's the development of the country. He was one of those who put country first. And that kind of dedication to service is what I have always admired in him, particularly because he was so young.
Service to my community, service to nation. That was the motto of former parliamentarian Ashton Ford.
I remember as a young guy when they promised to fix the football field and they couldn't fix it, we demonstrate, we have to get it done. And that we must have that passion to get it done and get it done right. And we must also work in the interests of the community. Put the community first, put your nation first.
In almost every community in this country, you have some families that are established families in the community. I think it would be true to say the Ford family is one such in the Arima district. Mr. Ford's father is somebody from Woodbrook. That's where I am from. We actually live 2 streets apart. But eventually he moved to Arima, and that is where the family sort of planted its roots. And sprung up from there. I mean, it's an absolutely very well-known name in Arima and its environs.
Known for his dynamism and integrity, Ashton Ford became politically active from an incredibly young age.
1955-56 was a very interesting period in the political development of this country. And that was when the PNM, People's National Movement, was launched. And his father was one of the foundation members of the party. People talk about the PNM being an institution, and indeed it is. And the reason why it has been able to develop as an institution is because of people like Ford Sr., who passed on that tradition to Ford Jr., to the several Fords Jr.
And by the age 15, because of my involvement with him, in 1966 general elections, I remember they asking me, they wanted to have a youth face on the platform. And they asked me if I wouldn't mind saying a few words, speaking for about 10 minutes or less. And I obliged. And I must say I did a pretty good job, because here I am now in politics thereafter.
An enthusiastic youngster, Ashton needed no prodding from his father. He recalls how his thirst for knowledge played a significant role in shaping his political development.
At first, he would drop me by my grandparents on Carlos Street in Woodbrook. But I would hear the same story over and over from my grandmother. So that I said, well, why don't you bring me to Bally's house? I'll wait there. He said, it will be long, you know. I said, I don't mind. So I came here and I sat downstairs. And while here, I would go through the magazines they would have available here. And I would meet all the members who come into General Council, including the government ministers at the time. So I would meet them, and when the General Council is over, they would call me Young Ford, you know, and I got that nickname up to just the other day, Mr. Manning called me Young Ford. You know, I got deeper into the politics because they would give me things to read. When I became an officer of the Youth League in 1968, secretary of the Youth League in Arima, I used that kind of experience in my early upbringing in politics.
Whether it was through writing letters to the news editor or lobbying, Ashton ensured that his voice was heard.
Well, when you were in the Youth League, we lobbied for the reduction of the voting age. It was 21 years. At the party level, we had a group of young, vibrant Youth League members, Maurice Marshall and so on, and Louis Leasing was in it. And we lobbied for a say in General Council and Central Executive. We succeeded in that, and the Constitution was amended in the party to bring in the Youth League as members of the General Council and Central X.
Although he attended the Arima Boys Government School and the Arima Secondary School, Ashton's education continued to be strongly rooted in the People's National Movement. Indeed, the late Dr. Eric Williams was instrumental in igniting and molding Ashton's passion for politics.
He would visit our home, my father's home, in the 60s. So we had a closer contact with him and face-to-face with him. And that, you wouldn't believe that's come like an injection then. If there was anything that needed to put me more involved in the politics, that was it, his visit to our home. And then when I became a member of the General Council, I was appointed on a committee where we have to go at his house once a month. So we had to go there and he would talk to us. We had to report to him. And then I was also fortunate enough to be with another committee from the Youth League, where that was a different kind of a training, because he would go through things like the cabinet notes and so on, very apasa. But the main area where we had full contact with him was in the party school, where he lectured on politics, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but the region and internationally. So that is where we were at our grounding, where we were focused on politics. Dr. Williams, was a tower of strength in this country, a powerful man, and the passion he instilled in us to work for our community, to work for our nation. Because you see, if you build your community, you build the nation. And that is why I had that motto, service to my community, service to the nation.
With this strong foundation, his entry into national politics was certain. And at age 26, young Ford was selected as a candidate for the local government elections.
After the Republican Constitution and the installation of the new Parliament in 1976, the local elections was due in 1977. And the party then in Arima, they were looking for someone to represent that area, that district, Southwest Arima, which is Malabar and so on. And they said, but who would be able to fight this young man, Shafiq Khan? And they said to my father, well, Fordy, you have a son there, man. Put him up, he has nothing to lose. If he loses, he could come again. But I won by 13 votes. It was a very memorable night.
I think that might have been one of the few instances where you had father and son in the politics together. Ashton served one term in the Arima Borough Council, and he was, as you said, the councillor. His father was an alderman. So you had a Ford and Ford grouping in the council.
I was watching the younger Ford because, well, the young people had to kind of keep an eye on one another and help each other along. But it was kind of groundbreaking that you would have a very young man and his father sitting on the council and getting on with the business of helping people.
While beginning his journalistic career at The Guardian newspaper, Ashton fervently carried out his duties as a councillor. By 1980, although still relatively young, he earned recognition as a true leader in the borough of Arima.
Yes, he served as mayor of Arima, and the young man that he was and the energetic mayor that he was, they used to refer to him in the papers as the hardest hard. And cultivated an image of the young man as an inactive in politics and that sort of thing. And I think, as I recall it, he had a very interesting and active period as mayor at the time. And I am pretty certain he's probably the youngest mayor ever to have served in Arima. And I'm not even too sure if he wasn't the youngest mayor ever in the country.
I think when he became mayor, the sports people were all very happy. His greatest achievement for us was that he was getting sporting facilities into Arima. And it made a difference to young people on the one hand, and to sporting people on the other hand.
At that time, there was some drastic changes in the local government. The county council, St. George, was divided into two. The creation of the Point Forte Borough Council, and Arima was extended 4 times the original size. So you know the challenges for me. I had to oversee the transformation of the people who lived in Malabar and other areas of Arima, who normally lived under the county council rules, had to now adhere to the new regulations of the Arima Borough Council as it was then.
His stint as mayor lasted a mere 18 months. It was intense and quickly followed by the 1981 general election.
Well, between 81 and 86, he served as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Works and then Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities. From the standpoint of a politician, I think he could have no two better ministries to work in, because these provide services to the people in their communities. So he would have been on spot, as it were. But his period there also coincided with some rapid social changes elsewhere in Trinidad and Tobago. The movement, the population movement eastward along the east-west corridor. Maloney, Malabar, a lot of the La Roqueta, a lot of these new communities, they had consequences. And the shortage of school places in those areas created a political problem, both for him as parliamentary representative in Arima and the adjacent constituencies. He was very instrumental in helping resolve the problem in his own constituency, as in the others, because there was a massive school building program.
With remarkable dedication, Ashton handled his dual responsibilities as a Member of Parliament and Parliamentary Secretary.
Arima was a large constituency from La Fillette in the north to Brazil in the south. And that is a very large area. The electorate was around 21 or 22,000 at the time. So you had to traverse that area, and you have to be visible. You cannot let people from Blanchard just come down to Arima to see you. You have to go to the villages, because there was no public transport. But we eventually got public transport at that time too. Sometimes you drive in and somebody will stop you. Mr. Ford, I want to see you there. You'll stop your car, take out the briefcase, take the information. We had no staff, we had no office, and we had to use community centers and people's homes to meet the people. And you had to do it because when you have to report to the political leader in those days, you have to indicate in your report how often you meet the people.
One of the things I remember most about him is if we were doing a project, he is going to go on that project and check that it is happening, which is what I do. So it made life easy. He would, he was a hands-on kind of person. There are some people who they do the policy and then they make speeches, and there are some people who don't talk plenty but get things done. He's in the latter category.
Although he preferred to be out in the field, Ashton also found his niche in the Parliament and developed great camaraderie with his colleagues, despite being junior to most.
No, well, as a young guy in Parliament, age 30, sitting among people like George Chambers, Errol Mahabir, Kamaluddin Mohammed, John Donaldson, Cuthbert Joseph, Russell Martineau, Anthony Jaslaw, I could go on, Hugh Francis, Patrick Manning. You had strength there back up. And on the other side, you had Basdio Pandey and Nizam Mohammed. They weren't easy, Kelvin Ramnath, John Humphrey, Pamela Nicholson. So you find that I sat in Parliament at that time when the country was also going through a transition, when George Chambers replaced Dr. Williams as Prime Minister. And here I am in Parliament with the new Prime Minister. And these experienced guys there, and ladies and gentlemen there, it was a hell of an experience for me.
He spoke with confidence when he did speak. He spoke in budget debates on areas within the portfolios that he was involved with, works and public utilities, and anybody in those two ministries would always have a lot to say, because especially in terms of water and electricity, the needs were acute at one time.
I sat on the Public Enterprises Committee of Parliament where Lloyd Best was the chairman and so on, and they had a big furor about corruption and things at that time. So that went through a lot of experience, a lot of projects too in Parliament that gave me experience in my lifetime.
In the general election of 1986, Ashton did not return to Parliament. He was 35, had a family to support, and it was a difficult period.
He was not there merely to get a seat in Parliament and then to run away when he no longer had the seat. He continued to be involved, which no doubt accounts for the fact that he's General Secretary today.
So he was one of that small band of people who was doing the reorganizing of the party and that hard slugging work of going out into the districts and talking with people and keeping the hope up, which is critical.
So he continued to be active. He was associated in the first Manning administration as an advisor in, I think, one or two ministries, and there he continued to serve both at the government level, therefore, while he continued with his party activities. So he never really left party involvement and party activity, and you literally, that is what gives what the sense of passing on, the passing on of the tradition from one political generation to another.
When the PNM returned to government in 1992, Ashton continued to contribute to national development, but this time outside of Parliament. In 2010, Ashton Ford was elected General Secretary of the PNM, and in 2013 was re-elected for a second term. Today, he remains a man of great dynamism, working tirelessly to serve his community and nation.
In the future, I would like to serve my country until I feel it's time to give up, and it's not far again.
He has kept politically involved. He has remained attuned to trends in the politics, and indeed would be able to sort of guide newcomers to the politics who may not immediately see the things the way he can. And as I said, he never really left it, nor did it ever leave him.